Trade Union Federation Cosatu is calling Finance Minister Tito Mboweni the greatest threat to President Cyril Ramaphosa's presidency. Cosatu leaders met in Johannesburg this week for a 3-day Central Executive Committee meeting. They lambasted him for his public statements. The union is unhappy with Mboweni's remarks on state-owned entities and what it calls his anti-worker attitude. Cosatu First Deputy President Mike Shingane joins us now. Good evening, Mike. Thanks very much for coming through. It's incredible that you had to have a discussion around this one minister at a Central Executive Committee meeting.
Thank you. No, we didn't have a discussion about him. It was a Central Executive Committee meeting, the first ordinary one after the National Congress. And they were making assessment of various issues, organizational, socio-economic, the state performance. But this will have been the first meeting of the leadership of Cosatu since the minister was appointed. And we've been assessing how he has behaved himself in that portfolio. So our discussion about him was not just the only thing that we did in the CC.
No, I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm just saying it's incredible that in all the discussions you had, among them was an issue about this one minister.
Probably that's because in the recent past, since the President Ramaphosa's appointment, we haven't seen many ministers, or in fact, we haven't seen ministers, those that they found there and those that they have appointed, that have publicly contradicted the presidency's schemes. That's why we're calling it the greatest threat to the president, because here you have a minister who, 2 weeks after he has been appointed, went to parliament, takes taxpayers' money, allocated to SAA. A week later goes on an international platform in UK and says that, in fact, SAA should close down. And the president had to find himself answering questions in parliament when opposition party were asking him whether that was actually a government policy to close down SOEs. He has to say, no, it's not a government policy. Now, the question is, if it's not a government policy to talk closing down SOEs, where does this minister come from? Is it not part of President Ramaphosa's government? Secondly, you will know that the president, addressing Cosatu and also in the Job Summit, assured South Africans that there's no plan from government that they are going to retrench public servants, including the retrenchments at SOEs, including SAPC. But we have a minister who talks down the fact that there's a plotted staff establishment in the SOEs. There must be retrenchments. Now,
shouldn't his boss then be the one reining him in? And shouldn't the ANC, which is the party that deployed him, be the ones who rein him in if he is not behaving like an ANC employee, which you allege?
In fact, if you've looked at our statement, that's exactly what we're calling on. We're calling on the president, we're calling on the ANC to rein him on, because he's going to reduce the president in the eyes of workers as a president who can't be taken serious if every time the president must explain himself being contradicted by his own minister. So we think that we are calling on the ANC to rein him, we're calling on the president to rein him.
But then if the president hasn't reined him in, if his party has not reined him in, it probably means that he's not contradicting their standpoint. If anything, they probably agree with him.
But that's not what they're communicating in public. That's a point we're making. He's the only minister who contradicts the state president. He's the only minister who contradicts the ANC. So we're saying either indeed they must say to us, in fact, Tito Mboweni has represented the government positions, or they must say he must rein in, he must toe the line of the ruling party that is deployed him in parliament. That's all we're saying. I mean, you will know that he was one person who said that public servants are actually too many. The wage bill in the public service is too huge. Now you have the so-called independent commission that recommends, they say after consultation with him, that in fact the politicians must get a 4% increase. At that point, he doesn't remember that, in fact, the public wage bill is too high. He thinks that it's okay for him to get a 4% hike, and he's making the same president to sign the very same increase, which he has just said to him, in fact, we have to cut down on the expenditure on the public service. So we're saying, which one is...
But how does that work? I mean, a Tito Mboweni would not have forced a Cyril Ramaphosa to sign that wage increase for members of the executive.
He will not have forced, but we're saying the independent commission says They've made a recommendation to the president after consultation with him.
Yes.
I'm saying...
But he has a right to refuse.
He's a person
he's
a person when civil servants wanted increase, he said there's no money as treasurer. He's a person who said, in fact, there are too many civil servants in South Africa. They must be cut down. The wage bill is, when you're making a statement in government, in parliament, he was saying the wage bill is too high. But we are saying he's the very same person who holds the purse that says now we think, I agree with the commission, we can have a 4% increase. We're saying, is the President Ramaphosa is going to be compromised in terms of the economic trajectory that he's trying to push if he's going to have ministers contradicting or sending message in public using himself and also themselves on the other platform that they find themselves in?
But why aren't you making the president responsible for what you're seeing, which you believe is not in line with what the ANC stands for or believes in? Why is it that you are making Tito Mboweni the guy who is wrong here and who is out of order? Because his boss is the one who should be able to say, Chief, you are not executing the mandate of the ANC. Chief, I can't do what you are getting me to do, saying that you believe that it is actually Tito Mboweni who has made the president sign the wage bill, for example.
No. The problem is that I don't know how you read our statement. Our statement calls for the president to act and the ANC. We're just talking about Tito Mboweni.
No, but then you're also saying at the same time that Tito Mboweni is compromising the president. And I'm arguing that if the president is doing what Tito Mboweni tells them, then it's the president who is compromising himself. It is not a Tito Mboweni. I mean, what powers does he have over a president?
He has the power of the public purse. He has the power of the public purse. He tells the country how the purse looks like. But besides, we have made that kind of analysis on many ministers before. Where it's not like it's the first time that we are singling out Tito Mboweni and calling on the ANC to rain on them. We have analyzed each minister in the past, and we've made a call about a performance of a minister in a particular portfolio. We are saying if he's allowed, that's a point we're making, if he is allowed by the president and by the ANC, he's going to compromise. In fact, we think that he's going to be campaigning the ANC as we head for elections. You can't be talking retrenchments in front of workers. You can't. That's why we're calling him an anti-worker minister. I mean, we believe that he has not rehabilitated himself. We thought he deserved a second chance after what he did when he was the governor of Reserve Bank. But we think he has not rehabilitated. So you can't have just one minister out of all the ministers who stands opposed to what looks like the ANC believes in public. That is campaigning the ANC. And we're saying the ANC can't afford to have such a minister. They must rein on him. They must toe the line. Otherwise, they must tell the public that, in fact, he calls the shot. They agree with him.
Isn't there a reality that you're refusing to confront here? And that reality is that you're beginning to be disappointed by some of the things that are happening, but you are not courageous enough to actually confront the man at the helm because you want to continue to be seen to be supporting him.
No, we're not beginning. We've been consistent. In the past, in all the presidency, in all the administrations that have here, when there are things that we think we're not happy with, we raise them, even if we've supported them. Even here, it's not the first time we're having this discussion, us and yourself, about the things that we think must be corrected in terms of how the presidency is running and how things are running in government. So we're going to do that on the one hand, but on the other hand, when we think that is the personnel that he has, the machinery that's supposed to support him, we think they're compromising him. We have a responsibility to point that out to him and also to them. So it's not like we are afraid of confronting the man. If there are things that we have been disappointed, if indeed at some point we're going to come to a conclusion that what is a problem here is a lack of decisiveness on the part of the president to rein in on his minister, we're going to say so. We're going to say so, but now we're saying that's why we're making a first call to him. Rein in your ministers. They are compromising you. They're going to make you in the eyes of the workers as a person who can be listened to in future when you speak, because you're going to say there's not going to be a retrenchment. Your minister is going to say, in fact, we must retrench. You're going to speak and say, we think we need more public servants, and you have got your minister who says, in fact, we don't have money, but later turn us and say, no, in fact, we can afford to get 4% on the politicians. So we think he must begin now to rein in order to win the confidence of workers. That's what we're making that call to him.
Shingane.